Welcome back, viewers, to this episode of Aspen Uprooted. We're so happy to have you with us today. Before we get started, we always want to remind you to like and subscribe and share these podcasts with as many people as you know so we can get our local businesses' names out in the community and they can be better service to those who need their wonderful services.
Absolutely.
That didn't make sense, but you know,
it's okay.
It's a good rant.
You just came up with it off the top of your head. That's pretty good.
Off the cuff.
Yeah.
Yep, just roll with it. Today we have a fantastic, interesting guest with us, Rockwell Peterson with Odin's Gate Guards. He's a young man in the community, owns a flourishing security company, so he will bounce you out of any bars you are getting in trouble in, or he will protect you at our events at the Civic Center, all sorts of fun stuff. So we're going to get all into that, your background and everything else, but first of all, thank you for being on the podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here with you guys.
We're happy to have you.
Yeah.
Well, let's start with your background. I mean, you have an interesting name, first of all. How'd you get that name, Rockwell?
I appreciate that. So I was actually born in a home birth in Rockerville, and it was kind of a family joke because my lungs were as full as a well, and they wanted me to be strong as a rock and get better. So that's kind of where the name Rockwell came from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you're here and you're doing good?
Yeah, doing what I can.
Yeah.
Doing what I can.
How about your background? So you're from the area, obviously, but how did you get from childhood to where you're at today with Odin's Gate Guards?
Absolutely. So I was born in Rockerville. Grew up out in Victoria Lake, just in the outskirts of Rapid. I went to a Montessori 1st through 4th grade, St. Thomas More private Catholic school 4th through 9th grade. Did 10th and 11th grade over at Stevens Public High School. Graduated early, and then went to South Dakota School of Mines for biomedical engineering for a year and a half. Then COVID hit. I decided I was going to take a gap year just because doing all the education online wasn't really my forte. I was like, I'd rather just take a step back. I'm a very auditory learner, so it helps me to actually interact with people to encode information into my head. I've been working at Murphy's Pub and Grill since I was 14, 15 years old, had a couple of jobs outside of that, as well as going to school throughout the years. But I worked my way up from a busboy all the way up to the lead expediter for him when I was 18. Mm-hmm. Tony DeMauro still owned Murphy's at the time. He came to me, was like, "Hey, you're a big kid. We're short-staffed on security. You wanna join the team?" And I was like, "Yeah, that'd be great." So I started working 9 days on, 1 day off between expediting and doing security. Mm-hmm. Within 6 months, I had worked my way up to being the supervisor for the Murphy's contract. I had one guy above me and then a co-supervisor for coal at the time. Tony DeMauro ended up selling Murphy's and coal. Press Start, who was the basement arcade bar, ended up purchasing the upstairs location. So I helped oversee that transition process, kind of helped stabilize everything. We continued working as a joint security force for both Murphy's and Press Start as they were getting started up. And then did that for about another 6 months. And that's when the Bradskys reached out to me, asked me to come down and help them out at the Alex Johnson. I did that for 5, almost 6 months. Mm-hmm. During that time period, I was their security manager and valet manager, helped them put some systems in place. It was great. It's always been great working with everybody in this community. It's always a pleasure. Mm-hmm. And around that time period, everything was starting to get pretty stable, and I wanted to kind of step out, try my hand at starting a security company because Murphy's reached out to me wanting me to come back, and obviously, it'd be a conflict of interest as well as way too much on my plate to try and independently run the security teams for all these different places. So instead, I started my company to kind of consolidate it a bit underneath one network, and we've been rocking and rolling ever since.
Awesome. That's quite the story.
Yeah. Thank you.
18-year-old bouncer. Get these people out of here.
Yeah, it was definitely a School of Hard Knocks introduction into the industry. But
how tall are you?
I'm about 6'5", 6'6", 190 pounds. I was 215 at the time when he talked to me about it. So
Now, don't let his slender size fool you. He's tall and he knows all sorts of martial arts.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that. What kind of training have you put yourself through?
So I've done boxing for almost 5 years now, as well as throughout this process of getting into the security industry, training with legitimate professionals in the field and their specific martial disciplines. I'm functionally proficient in. I don't want to claim to be, a master or an expert in any of this, but
Sure.
boxing, kickboxing, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, Greco-Roman wrestling, Muay Thai, as well as some military-grade CQB, weapons disarming, and the de-escalation. It's not really a martial skill, but it comes into a large part of fighting or any sort of interaction with people is psychology, especially when they're agitated. So de-escalation, body language, as well as what I like to call stress inoculation. So a big thing for me is I like to take my guys and run them through crash courses of scenarios that they're going to be in. I love filling a room full of people, and if anybody in the community ever wants to be a part of this, we do offer free trainings as well as opportunities to get involved as basically drunk people that need to be removed from the premises or general crowd trying to fight at you, going over crowd control, as well as different formations and styles of executive protection is a great time. So,
Something everyone could probably use these days.
Absolutely.
I know you did a class for like a bunch of ladies too, so they could have like a self-defense class, but they're comfortable with a bunch of their friends and in a safe space where they can learn those techniques. So that's kind of cool as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it was an absolute pleasure doing the self-defense class for the B&I group of ladies as well as their friends. Big shout out to Meraki Box here in town. The owner, Ryan McGivern, he's been training me for years. His training's quite literally saved my life. And so he helped me out a lot with that self-defense class. Just, I like to have somebody double check. I'd hate to give somebody advice on something and then they're like, well, I used it and it didn't work. So
I don't have an arm anymore.
Yeah. Wow, thanks, Rock. Yeah. So
nice. Well, let's talk about Odin's Gate Guards. I'm saying that right?
Yeah.
Odin's Gate Guards.
Absolutely.
It's a tongue twister. You say it too many times too fast. But you talked about how you got started with Murphy's and Press Start and Alex Johnson. How has that grown over the past? Because it's been in business, 3 years? 4 years?
Yes, 3 years now.
3 years. So in 3 years, how much have you grown? Because it's been expedited.
It's been absolutely amazing. I couldn't be more thankful. So it started off right after I got done with the Alex Johnson, in that kind of transitional period, getting everything set up, making sure I did some research on my end as far as business practices go, ways to structure the business, getting the LLC filed. Right after I got the LLC filed and the license, I picked up a contract to do a personal security detail for Sydney Powell and her family when she came into town for Rally. So I actually cut my teeth and got some training in executive protection from the Secret Service that I did a joint force operation with them on. That was an amazing opportunity. I learned so much over that week of 24/7 security for her and her family. And then that kind of gave me the seed money, and I took that $5,000, got a couple contracts, called some guys of mine from back in the day that used to be on my team that I love working with before, that I knew were licensed and trained and kind of operated the way that I was looking for. Started filling out some of those contracts, took $5,000, turned it into a gross of 135 in the first year, took that 135, turned it into a gross of 475 the next year. And then this year, with the acquisition of Timberline Security and Services, LLC up in Butte, Montana, we've just seen exponential growth ever since. It's truly been an amazing journey. I'm super thankful for it. So
that's awesome.
Thank
Cool.
you.
It's turning into like an episode of Shark Tank. So what kind of investment are you seeking from our viewers? 10% stake for $500,000.
Pretty sure I'd be like, I'm in. That's what I would say. Not, I'm out. Yeah.
Nice. So how many clients, you mentioned expanding into Montana, so you're servicing the Rapid City and surrounding area, probably overflow into Wyoming a little bit.
Absolutely.
And then now Montana, how many clients are you currently servicing? How many staff do you have to accommodate that?
I have a rotating door because it is a kind of a transitory industry, but I have a pretty consistent average staff of 60 licensed guards between Montana and South Dakota at any given time, which has been amazing. We're going to have to start upping that to about 80 with a new contract expansion we're getting over in eastern Montana. And then total client list, I believe we've got about 80 clients at this point between the two states. Roughly, we get a lot of seasonal work too, so in the summer times that goes up by a lot, but it's been awesome.
Nice. So 80 clients. So if you're downtown at any establishment or at the Civic Center and you see a security guard, it's likely that they're working for Rockwell, which is kind of cool. So
I really appreciate that. It's been an amazing opportunity.
I've been doing all the talking. Dan, what questions you got? Dan always does the research. I just gab.
Yeah, I let him go. Yeah. Well, so I was going to ask you, when you were growing up in Rockerville and then in Rapid City, you mentioned some of these questions we gave you that you kind of started to see a shift in Rapid City. You kind of started to see a change happen. What was that change that kind of put this interest into your mind to get into this kind of work?
Absolutely. So a lot of people, especially like my parents' generation that grew up in Rapid City, it was kind of a sleepy small town in the foothills, wonderful place to grow up. But as I got older, probably around the time I was like 10 or 11, I started noticing a lot more crime that already existed in the city, but especially a lot more that was coming in.
Yeah. Yep.
And then over the last 12 years, I've seen just an exponential rise in the crime rates, and truly it's not at all the fault of the RCPD or the city government, or the state, quite frankly, because they're doing everything they can. One of the major issues that Rapid City faces right now that a lot of people don't know about is we are on the Silk Road for drug trafficking between LA and Chicago. And so we have 13 million tourists come through this city and state every year, right? I would hazard a guess that it's safe to say between 15 to 20% of that 13.5 million are drug traffickers or within the industry in some way, shape, or form. The highway in between Brookings and Sioux Falls is top 10 in the nation for human trafficking. And that's part of why there's a lot more people and money in Sioux Falls as opposed to Rapid City. I'm not going to say that it's all due to that, right? Sure. But if you look at the way the money flows, at least in the underworld and in some of the more underserviced communities, you can get 4 to 5 times the street price of any drug on the reservation as opposed to LA.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of guys will make a bulk sale agreement in Chicago, they'll pick it up in LA, and then they'll pick up extra product and sell it off as they go along the reservation.
Wow.
And so that's led to a lot more money. People hit Rapid City with a lot of drugs in their vehicle, and then they hit Sioux Falls with a lot of extra pocket money before they hit Minneapolis onto Chicago.
Sure.
Where they make their final large sale. And so.
No idea.
Yeah. Interesting stat that you had shared with our group before. Where does Rapid City rank as far as like the top safest cities or most dangerous cities in the U.S.?
So it's actually become a really, really terrifying statistic recently. So with the massive population influx that we have right now, as well as it continues, the infrastructure in the city is not appropriately equipped to deal with that quite yet. And I'm good friends with Jason Solomon, and I know that he's doing everything he can to get the city, and he's got some great people behind him down at City Hall, as well as all the great government workers that are, trying to combat the problem. But unfortunately, none of who can prepare for 30 to 40,000 people moving out of the blue. Yep. But as part of that, we've seen Rapid City become the 29th most dangerous city in the U.S. per capita as of last year.
Oh, wow.
And one of the most terrifying parts of that is, with it being such a large but small community and area, there's a lot of room to hide crimes here. And so there's also a large culture of not reporting crimes that happen. And so as part of that, I quite frankly believe the statistics are higher than what we're seeing even reported. Because great anecdotal story that some of my guards and I have ran into. We were at a contract, and we were doing our normal perimeter sweep, right? And we ran into some suspicious individuals that were violating some of the basic guidelines of being on premises. And after removing them from the premises, we ended up calling them in to RCPD because one of them took off and looked like they were driving drunk, and the other one pulled over into a gas station nearby and sat there, right?
Okay.
When RCPD got there, they ended up searching the vehicle that was sitting there and ended up busting 70 pounds of methamphetamines in the trunk of the vehicle.
That's.
Yeah.
When did you say your car was impounded? I'm sorry. Okay.
It's a bad joke.
Yeah, it is a bad joke. But okay, I'm sorry.
I can confirm that Miles was not the individual.
I am not out of my house after like 8 p.m. So I'm an old man in bed.
Time out. I didn't mention anything about the time frame. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Anyway, I'm sorry. Continue.
Oh, you're good. You're good. Obviously an anecdotal story, but it is a great example of things like that. You could drive right by that person and never know that they have that much in the trunk of their vehicle. You know.
And it's been nice. I mean, you mentioned working with the police department over the last 3 years. As you've grown your business, you've actually developed quite a relationship with RCPD. Talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. No, it's always a pleasure working with the great people down at the Rapid City Police Department as well as the Sheriff's Office. They've been incredibly professional and helpful. We've been able to strike a great balance as far as operations go on our contracts and how we deal with situations, how we turn them over to them. They've been nice enough, because a lot of people don't know this, but security actually operates based off of a legal concept called owner by proxy. So when we're there, we're not there just to be hired muscle. We are there as a proxy of the owner of the business and establishment, and what allows us to operate is actually the rights of the free citizenry. So when we're there operating, we have the legal protection of the owner of the premises, the business, and the property, which is what allows us to do what we do. And so as part of that, we basically act as a middleman to take a lot of stress and pressure off of the owners of these businesses so they can just focus on making money, how their operations are doing, and everything else they have on their plates. And we handle interactions with the police like a liaison for them, prevention of crime, monitoring of staff, and general operations. You know, there's been quite a few times we've discovered employees stealing money or, pouring themselves alcoholic drinks when they're not supposed to be on shift, and being able to just kind of be that watchful eye for those businesses goes a really long ways. And Rapid City Police Department has been amazing, has always had our guys' back on dealing with incidents. A lot of the times at our contracts, if we know it's going to be a super busy night, we'll communicate beforehand, figure out what we're going to do. They'll park a car outside should they have the availability, and they'll do patrol routes. But then when those officers are outside, instead of having to call it into the dispatch line and muddy that water, instead we get to take them straight out with the police on site, hand them over, makes it nice and easy.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, just lost my thought. Never mind. Go ahead. I had the question, I just lost it.
You're the one with the notes.
I know. Well, it was, yes, so you do unarmed and armed security.
Yes, sir.
So how does that affect the focus of the training when you're doing, does the training differ between the two? Do you focus more on one point with the armed versus the unarmed? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the way that it operates, all my guards have, I like to call it level 0, 1, 2, and 3 training, right? And so based on the level of training that you need, obviously your price point is going to be different, based on a risk assessment of your contract as well as what you're looking for.
Sure.
And so as part of that, all my guards, in order to be a level 1, which should be basic, can handle themselves.
Mm-hmm.
They get de-escalation training, self-defense training, education on the pertinent laws in a classroom setting, as well as shown around the contract, just because being able to physically and tangibly see what's going on, that goes a long ways.
Yep.
I get my manager's taxi licenses and TAM certifications as well once they hit their level 1, just so that they can further assist the business, be more aware of people's ability to drive while intoxicated, try to prevent that and have some avenues for prevention of that, as well as training on what to look for with overdoses and the best ways to remediate that. And then if you're a level 1 armed, you also have a basic level certification and qualification in firearms. And so I know some great former Marine Corps firearms instructors. They do an absolutely amazing job. And so they have run myself. I've passed it personally because I refuse to ask my guys to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. You know, I can't sit here and be like, yeah, no, you got to pass this. Anyways, though, no. But I've passed the Marine Corps firearms table, which is the basic qualification for the U.S. Marines, in pistol and rifle. And I expect the same from my guys should they be a level 1 armed. So by the end of it, it turns into about 60 to 100 hours of training. And then we always do ongoing continuous training. As part of that, we're almost always hiring people as well, just because I like to stay 1.5 times overstaffed, just because it helps. A little bit of peace of mind if somebody calls off. So
I get that. So when you talk about an unexpected piece of advice you've ever received, can you share with us what that would be?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a really amazing quote that's stuck with me ever since I heard it, right? So the difference between success and failure genuinely comes down to a lot of people spend their entire lives oscillating between 2 levels, right? Because everybody experiences periods of exponential growth and precipitous falls, you know? And I'm sure each of you can think of a time in your life where you're like, wow, everything's just going amazing for me. And then, wow, everything sucks, you know? Like, nothing's going right? So the path to success on that is if you can capitalize on that exponential growth and mitigate the downfall, that's where you start reaching that next level, right? And it takes a lot of patience and time and consistency and the willingness to just not give up. You know, you don't fail when you lose. You fail when you give up. Right? So my biggest advice for people is try to turn that into a staircase mentally for yourself. You know, it may not be the smoothest ride, you know, you're gonna have times, everybody does, where things are just bad, but if you can mitigate that and stay calm and confident and focused on what you're trying to do, you will get there.
That'll keep things more at an even keel in your life too. If you can prevent the lows from going so low, you know, that'll help keep that. That's good advice.
Thank you.
Constant climb. Very nice. We got to talk about one last thing. It's not every day you meet someone that's been struck by lightning. Tell us about that story, if you don't mind.
Absolutely. So really, really wild story. I was driving home from school, and my parents live out by Red Rocks, over on the west side of town. And so I was coming home from Stevens, about 15 years old, and I had my sunroof slightly open. You know, it was a cloudy day out. It wasn't like raining heavily, but it was nice and overcast. So I figured I'd open it up a little bit for some breeze. And I was coming along that rail guard on Old Sheridan Lake Road, just past the like Wings and Rings there.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah. And so I was coming around the turn, and then there was just a bright flash of light. Absolutely, like trying to describe this. Have you ever stuck your finger in a socket? Imagine that, but like 10,000 times worse, and you got flashbanged in the process. All right,
Miles,
like,
can you test it? Let's see.
Let me see. So yeah, that was incredibly painful. The doctors told me that what saved me was the fact that the tires grounded it and it struck my car rather than specifically just me.
Sure.
The radio turned on and off like 3 times. Lightning hit the car, went through the metal of my sunroof, through my right shoulder, out through my left calf, and then grounded. So if I would have had anybody in the passenger seat, it would have done the reverse right through their heart and killed them. Yeah, so I couldn't move my right arm for about an hour and a half, 2 hours. And ironically enough, I know how this sounds, but this is how I found out that my father had also been struck by lightning at some point in his life, because I drove home with my left hand, kind of went in through the door and was like, "Hey, Dad, I just got struck by lightning." And he's like, "Well, were you in your car or out of your car?" And I was like, "In my car." And he's like, "All right, come play Scrabble." I was like, "What?" So he ended up telling me the whole story about the time he had been struck by lightning when he was in college. And I was like, that is insane. That is insane. That is absolutely insane. Right? Well, he was right, gave me great advice. He was like, "They're not really going to be able to do much for you. We'll get you, checked out, but
it's already done."
Yeah, it's already like.
Another fun fact: Rockwell's also related to Chris Hemsworth, aka Thor. No, I'm just kidding.
I was like,
hold up.
And you stayed conscious through the whole thing. Like, it didn't knock you out.
I'll tell you this, I was in and out. I don't mean to claim that I was completely conscious the whole time. Like, it was, I remember seeing the beginning of the rail guard starting to make the turn, bright flash of light, like seeing like all the flickering from like the radio and like consciously kind of coming in and out. And then I like fully returned to at least motor function faculties on that straightaway. So I got so lucky with just the...
Sure. Because that just goes off into the forest.
Oh, God, yeah, awful. I think about it every time I drive by it. I'm just like...
Wow.
Close the sunroof.
Yeah.
That's kind of the lesson I'm taking away. Maybe
Cloudy day, close the sunroof, all right?
Funny.
Wow.
Well, that's a crazy story. Thanks for sharing.
Happy to.
I think we want to just end with you demonstrating on Miles how to disarm someone and kind of throw them to the ground. Okay, that's the last joke.
Dan will do it.
Yeah.
He's happy to.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we definitely appreciate everything your company's doing for the community, keeping people safe, not only downtown, but throughout the community at the big events. I know you were working the Chris Stapleton concert. That was cool to see all your guys there everywhere. So we certainly appreciate that. I know we have a lot of business members that are members that watch the podcast. So if someone would like to employ you for your services, how can they get a hold of Odin's Gate Guards?
Please, yeah, that'd be amazing. You're welcome to reach out to us either at 605-786-7263 or through our website, www.odinsgateguards.com. Also, feel free to shoot us an email at management@odinsgateguards.com. We do free consultations. We're always happy to help. There's no job too big or too small. I love getting my people working. I love keeping my community safe and making sure that everybody's got the protection they need. So,
and if someone wanted to enjoy the training that you offer, same thing?
Yeah, please feel free to reach out. We'd love to get you in on some of our training times as well as schedule some events for you. And then if you're interested in further training that goes even farther in depth, feel free to reach out to Ryan McGivern down at Meraki Box. Great gym, great people.
We'll have to get Dan in on that with that self-defense training. His wife's been picking on him a little bit.
As when my wife say, I'm fluent in Karen. I'm yeah. You can find him out. Calling the manager. Yeah. Okay.
I had to pick on him once at least.
Oh yeah, I've been doing it all podcast long, so it's deserved.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, appreciate it, Rockwell.
I appreciate you.
Until next time, when we dig up another story from the Grove, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you then.
Aspen Uprooted, we're taking